it's always the Instagrammable stuff that you see in sport. That final moment, that great goal. You haven't seen that guy has been practicing that for 15 years. That's simple. My dad's philosophy in the house from being really young was you do your sport first, and if you've got time, you can do your homework. Right. I became a product of my environment, living in Manchester and being what my dad called me, which was right at the time, like a yuppie. Everyone's too competitive. Yeah. It's a bit like athletics. People keep what they do secret because they think they've got the magic recipe. Yeah. In actual fact, they're not. There isn't any secrets. Yeah. If you're motivated intrinsically by the love of winning the game, then you're bulletproof. You're completely bulletproof because no matter what happens, it's just a speed bump. Like my one thing to kind of get out of that and just be like, okay, you're in the zone is a Noel Gallagher quote, which is, how much do you want it?
So we're really excited and incredibly honoured to have one of the most remarkable, inspirational and self-motivated guests we've had on the show today. As you will hear, his achievements have been truly astonishing and will be an absolute inspiration to us all. So it's with great pleasure to welcome Lee Grantham to the show to share his secrets and sacrifices of his professional ultra running journey so far and much, much more. So Lee, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Simon. Appreciate time, Simon and Mason.
Thank you very much. So before we start, so the listeners can get to know you a little bit better, my children have come up with 10 quickfire would you rather questions. And because it's a family portrait, we're going to have Mason asking you the questions today. So I'm going to pass you over to Mason.
Come on.
And I'll
How you doing, Mason?
There we go.
Would you rather game or read a book?
Game or read a book? Easily read a book. Easily. Yeah.
Would you rather win $1 million or earn $1 million?
Oh, that's another easy one. I'd rather much easily rather earn $1 million. Yeah. Yeah.
Have a takeaway or eat out?
Oh. No, luckily my girlfriend's not here because she'd tell you exactly what I'd prefer to do, which is the cheaper option of eating in. But I'd prefer to eat out. But depending on where I am in the world, if you're here in Dubai, I'd prefer to eat in. But if I'm in Thailand, I'd definitely prefer to eat out. Yeah, good question.
What would be your favorite food?
It's Italian. I love pizzas. You know, I love pizzas. I've had a vegan diet for the last 7-8 years, but pizza is where my vegan diet falls down. It has to be a margherita pizza, and it has to have cheese on it, Mason. Yeah, I love pizzas. Well. Yeah, it is. Yeah, good man.
Would you rather listen to Stormzy or Drake?
Oh, I'm going to show my age now. I have no idea. I saw Stormzy on a recent football interview, and he seemed like a really nice bloke. So I'm going to say Stormzy. I don't know the other fella.
Would you rather wear Nike or Adidas?
Oh, easily Nike. Although my team is Kraft, I'd easily wear Nike. Yeah.
Own a Bugatti or Lamborghini?
Oh, okay. Well, wouldn't the sensible thing to be own a Bugatti, sell it, and buy 20 or 40 Lamborghinis? Wouldn't that be? Yeah, I'll go for option B.
That's a great answer. I've never had that answer before. That's a great answer.
Bugatti. I get the Bugatti, yeah.
Would you rather do cardio or lift weights?
Cardio all day long, yeah.
Play Spider-Man or the Incredible Hulk in a Marvel movie?
That's a good question. I'm going to go for Spider-Man. He looks a little bit more agile, a little bit less angry, and yeah, the mood swings are less as well, aren't they? Yeah.
Would you rather dine with the late Don Ritchie or Giorgio Calcaterra?
That's a brilliant question. I'd have to say Don, but both of them absolute brilliant people. And but to me, both are my heroes, and luckily I get to compete with one of them. But yeah, definitely the former Don Ritchie is, and to most people unknown, but the things that guy achieved just kind of leave the imagination kind of running wild, because you don't know how he did what he did. Yeah, and this is before time of super shoes to technology, being able to get a flight to somewhere so easily. The stories that he has to tell. That's a great book to read, The Stubborn Scotsman. If you love sport and if you love running, yeah, that's a really good question, Mason.
Would you rather run 50 kilometres uphill or 100 kilometres on the flat?
Oh, okay, definitely 50 up. The question I often get asked is which is harder, and the simple answer to that is no matter what distance you run, it's as hard as you make it. So if you want to go easy, you can go easy. It's like a football game, right? If you want to go at 80%, you go at 80%. But there's just in 50k uphill, and especially the runs that I do in both Thailand and Granada, you've got the heat, you've got the altitude, and the gradient is just relentless. So there's nowhere to hide, and that's for me the great thing about ultra running. There's nowhere to hide. So if you've not done the work, you're going to get found out. And I love that about the sport. Yeah, that's another great question. Yeah, you're doing your research.
He definitely has. He definitely has. Right. Thank you very much for that, Mason. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, as you touched on there, I was just going to mention to the listeners at home who may not know anything about Don Ritchie. He was regarded as one of Britain's greatest ever kind of ultra marathon runners, wasn't he? And like you said at the time, they didn't have all this kind of technology and the kind of transport and things. So the kind of feats that he did were. And again, from not coming from this background, from all the reading that we've kind of both done together, some of the races and the feats were kind of phenomenal. And he was one of the last Brits to win the Italian Passatore, wasn't he? The 100k in 1979 and 1980. I think that's correct, isn't it? And again, like you mentioned. I think his book inspired you as well, didn't it? It was the Stubborn Scotsman that it was called, and I think because of that, and then obviously you was the next kind of Brit and the only Brit to kind of win the Italian Passatore after Don in 1980. And we obviously included the Giorgio part because I mean at the time you beat him as well, which was again amazing. Because he was 3 times world champion, and he'd won the course 12 times as well, which they're just ridiculous kind of feats, aren't they? Really. So we thought when we started reading up on it, Mason thought it was quite a nice kind of question to kind of ask you. So to be able to kind of read up on things like that and to kind of share the stories. It's been really nice for us to kind of get an education into the world of ultra marathon running as well. So it's been really nice learning the journey.
It's brilliant.
So as you know, the podcast is to shine the light on the secrets and sacrifices all families go through to allow their children to become elite level athletes. Something that's really close to our hearts with having 4 children currently on this journey. And first of all, I wanted to start off with a story that I read, and we read a lot of stories, and there was lots of stories about you. However, this one was one that I read. It was an article you did in Men's Health magazine in 2021. It was, and it was when you was first introduced to the ultramarathon running scene back in 2010. And we thought it was we thought it encapsulated the reason behind why we was doing the podcast and the reason why we wanted to shine the light on the secrets and sacrifices, because you was brought to the attention of a race in Granada in Spain, and it's got one of the world's toughest ascents. And when you was looking at all the guys on the podium, you were saying that this was the glory moment, and this was the moment that only lasts for a few seconds.
Yep.
However, people should be looking at them and seeing all the hours, all the days, the weeks, the months, the years of training and hard work and dedication that kind of goes into it. Um,
Yeah.
However, a lot of people don't. They just see, like you said, the podium finish. So we just thought it was something that was quite fitting to the podcast. And one of the reasons why we were so excited to kind of get you on and to kind of get your take on it also, we just thought that story that we read really kind of showcased what we was trying to achieve with the podcast as well. So I just thought it was a great story to kind of share. And yeah.
Yeah, she's a brilliant journalist, the girl who wrote it, and
Right.
so she kind of like usually you sort of get asked the off the shelf 10 questions, and you get kind of put together in a story. She
Yeah.
wanted to know a little bit more about kind of what goes on behind the scenes, and that's exactly kind of why I got into sport, because you only see the pinnacle, right?
Yeah.
It's a bit like watching a successful business person. You only see that kind of the fancy car or the fancy clothes or the nice house. You don't see that they've done so many hours that if they were earning minimum wage, they might have got there sooner. So it's always the Instagrammable stuff that you see in sport. That
Yeah.
final moment, that great goal, you haven't
Yeah.
seen that guy has been practicing that for 15 years, and
Yeah.
that was the moment. So there's no such thing as luck. It's kind of
Yeah.
preparation meets opportunity, right? So you have to be there and at the right moment. And
Yeah.
for me, with running, and especially ultra running, a lot can go wrong on the day as well, and it
Yeah.
usually does go wrong.
Right.
So
Okay.
it's not just your ability to run fast over a long space of time. It's also your ability to problem solve on the go.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's for me. Yeah, it was a really good article. Yeah.
um, so the first question that I normally ask all our guests is if they could take us back to their earliest childhood memories of when they was growing up. So for you, what was your childhood like when you was growing up in Manchester? What was family life like? And could you kind of take us back to your earliest childhood memories to begin with?
Yeah. I was born in a place called initially like Duckingfield,
Okay.
Audenshaw, Denton.
Yeah.
So I went to school in Audenshaw. I went to primary school from 4 to 11 in Russell Scott.
Okay.
And I just suppose that my dad was big into football, so
Right.
he was
Okay.
always pushing me into football. Not in a bad way. It was kind of like that was all that we watched on the TV, and all that we did as from being 3, 4 years old. I just loved spending time with my dad and kicking a ball around. So for as long as I know, they say I was 2 when I was playing football, but I just remember that was the time that I got to spend with my dad after school and after he finished work, and
Okay.
at the weekends just
Yep.
play football nonstop. And then when I went to primary school, again, I kind of got fortunate with I'm sure my dad had something to do with this, but the headmaster and the main teacher at the school, and also my like form teacher, were crazy about sport. So I honestly can't remember in those 7 years that you go to primary school. I can't remember being in the classroom. I only
Okay.
ever remember playing like we played a lot of rounders, a lot of
Yeah.
football, a lot of basketball, and it was just non-stop sport. And I think the same as my dad, and then the same as my secondary school teachers, who were just crazy about sport at Audenshaw. They seem to just realize that you learn a lot more through sport in those early years than you could
Yeah.
ever learn in the classroom. And so that has always made sense to me. That the teamwork, the learning to fail, the what you put in, you get out, the resilience, everything that goes into sport is so it's so easy to teach that method to
Yeah.
children because they'll get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, we spoke on the phone about kind of the example of you put 10 kids, and this would always happen. Like my summer holidays were literally, I would go to the local cricket club because in Denton there's 3 cricket clubs, which
Okay.
is insane. I don't think that is anywhere in the world that there's 3 cricket clubs in one single town with a population of 30,000. But they're fiercely competitive.
Right.
But in the summer holidays, the groundsman would let you put up the cricket nets. So being a small boy, you'd need multiple people to help get the poles, to wrap the net, to put the next one. It's not a one-person job. So I would be like 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. I'd be knocking on people's doors saying, "Are we playing cricket now?" And the parents would be, "He's not had his breakfast yet," or "She's not had a breakfast yet, and she's coming out." So those kind of opportunities that you have as a kid to play in a safe area, to be part of a sports community. Can't remember doing much else. So when you get to secondary school and you've had all that, things came very easy for me because I was kind of in a good light with the sports teachers.
Yeah.
So all the time I was off playing cricket, I was off playing basketball, football, athletics, and cross country. So you kind of, from my childhood, I just remember sport.
Right. Okay.
It was just that simple. My dad's philosophy in the house from being really young was you do your sport first, and if you've got time, you can do your homework.
Right.
But,
Okay.
Which most parents would be like, "Geez, it's the opposite way around." But for him, it was like, for me and my younger sister, you're bright enough to pass GCSEs.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science. It's just most of it is common sense. Like, but the sport, if you can get the sport right, you're gonna learn so much more through that.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if I had children, if I'd be exactly the same. But I don't think I'd be Farah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So was it? I also read as well. Was you unbeaten as a county runner as well at the time? What age was you where you was doing that?
You must have dug up some files here. You must have been kind of in the deep dive in the libraries here. Yeah. So again, like I wasn't. I kind of had a couple of primary school races before 11,
Okay.
and then the second. I remember you join school. You know what it's like as a young boy joining school, and it was an all boys school.
Right.
So you join school like Ordenshaw that's got 5 years, 200 kids in a year. That's about 800 to 1,000 children, and you join, and all of a sudden you're at school with what looked like men at the time, right? Like, bloody hell, that guy's got a beard, and
Yeah.
he's a fully grown man, and you feel like you're still a prepubescent boy, and you still feel like a child. So you kind of you're pretty kind of you're kind of figuring out how the world works, and the second Monday was the school cross country, in order to pick the school cross country team, because it's coming up to winter. It's September. Okay. And I won that by, it was probably a 2-mile race, and I think I won it by about 5 minutes. It was a massive victory.
Wow.
Like a massive. We were waiting a long time for second place, and then I think the teachers then were like, "Okay, we've got somebody on our hands who could do something." And I was wearing football boots at the time, so no running shoes or spikes or anything like that. So they knew that they had something that needed nurturing. Yeah. They told me to join the local running club, which was East Cheshire Harriers. Okay. So I went to see East Cheshire Harriers, and then you've got like Tuesday, Thursday night, you're running cross country or track and field. Yep. Saturday or Sunday you're racing, and either the Saturday or the Sunday that you're not racing with your club, you're racing with school. Right. So all of a sudden you're doing that, and you're good because of the base fitness that I'd had from football and just running around all the time. So you're just good at something that you just kind of you didn't really know about. You don't know about tactics or anything like that, but you learn very quickly. And then obviously if you start winning, you get into this positive feedback loop where everybody is patting you on the back, and you're doing a good job at the school, and people think you're superhuman, and in actual fact you've just got ADHD, but it's just not been diagnosed yet. So it's that, and also that led to a lot of opportunities. So I wasn't beaten for a long time, but only to the point, and your sons are probably figuring this out at the moment, you can be good in a small pond. Yeah. But as soon as you start going, okay, Tameside championships, the borough champ, okay, you're top dog. Yeah. County championships, not so easy. It's starting to get and then the British championships or English schools or something like that. I remember my first English schools, and then you're coming up against lads like Mo Farah is the same age as me.
Yeah.
So I remember one of my first times I was beaten is that kind of race. Yeah. So Mo Farah came second, and I was 20 something,
Right.
and I'm
Okay.
like, what's going on here? But then you get to know, which is another great thing, obviously, about sport. It's kind of what we touched on, but you get to know that you might be good, but in order to be great, you need to still you nurture and
Yeah.
work hard on that talent. So
Yeah.
you might have
Yeah.
a little bit of talent, but that only takes you so far. You really need to be disciplined, resilient, and really
Yeah.
want it. And at
Yeah.
that point, if you're not, I hadn't lost for a few years. Then all of a sudden you get a result like that. It can be very disheartening.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
and children walk away then because they're like, well, I'm not winning anymore. But again, my coaches and school teachers and my dad just dealt with it really well. It's like, well, are you gonna let those kids beat you, or you're gonna do something about it? So training got even harder, and then you start working at it. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, what you say is right, but it's kind of a false economy because you're
Yeah.
a big fish in a small pond for
Yeah.
quite some time until you start traveling. So yeah.
Okay.
So,
Okay. So from the age of 17, 18, this is when you, as you say, you kind of discovered the Manchester scene, wasn't it?
yeah.
And you kind of solo running took a bit of a back seat then, didn't it? And you
Yeah.
started
Yeah.
you started your journey as a headhunter in Manchester, and you was a very successful headhunter as well. And you kind of showcased all your probably athletic competitiveness there in like kind of the leaderboard culture. And if you was hearing that there was another employee who was say outperforming others in like kind of the Birmingham or the Amsterdam office, you wanted to like kind of meet them, talk to them, talk tactics, and then you almost wanted to kind of implement these like newfound skills yourself as well,
Yeah.
didn't you? And then at the time as well, you also mentioned because you was being so successful with work, you was going out in the nice restaurants in Manchester, nice clothes, nice like kind of watches and things. However, you say that you wasn't 100% kind of happy with the way like kind of your life was going, which resulted in 2009 you taking a sabbatical and doing your cycling tour of Asia.
Yeah.
And this was, you say, some of the best kind of moments of your life that you'd kind of had. So again, could you just almost explain to us the kind of process or the thought process that you was going through with having this kind of successful career to
Yeah.
almost want to kind of sacrifice that career to get into your kind of ultra marathon running?
Yeah. So again, I try and answer all of that. There's a lot to remember, but so again, like I mean, one thing to note first is like when you're kind of if you're a company looking for people,
Yep.
it doesn't matter kind of what your company does, but if it's kind of focused on bottom line,
Yep.
whether it's recruitment or you're trading, you're in finance and banking, a lot of those people will sometimes they'll look for a good school, but
Yep.
they will take a good level, somebody who's performed at elite level sport. They will really look at that first and
Yep.
say, right, okay, that person has done that and had the discipline, the resilience, the drive, the determination in order to kind of get to that level and what it
Yep.
takes. We'll interview them.
Yeah.
So that will get you into a lot of doors where for other people that might take 4 years at a very good university.
Yeah.
So it's kind of another entrance into these big companies where you could do really well.
Okay.
So essentially that's what happened to me. And then what I realized in recruitment, I fell into recruitment just by chance. I wanted to go traveling when I was 18.
Right.
I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I'd been partying too much. I needed to get out of that. And I needed to, all what I knew is that I didn't know what I wanted to do in the future.
Right.
Up to then, I wanted to be a professional footballer.
Okay.
And then I wasn't, my dad had to chat with me. I wasn't good enough. And it was clear. And so next I wanted to be sports teacher at school.
Right,
And then
okay.
we were kind of introduced to how much those people earn, and it's atrocious, and
Yep.
therefore I didn't want to do that. So I wanted to be successful, and so I went to a temporary recruitment company near to where I live in Hyde,
Okay.
and I would just go there for temporary work, and they'd send me to fish factories, cardboard box making factories, labouring on a brick site, anywhere that I could get to. On my bicycle, they'd send me. So I'd be first there in the morning, often before they would get in the office, and then they'd just call around companies and say, "We've got a lad here waiting. He'll do anything." What? And so I'd earn money that way. And after about 3 months, they offered me a job and said, "We've got something in house answering the phones. Would you like to do that?" And it was the first time that I wasn't going to be doing any heavy lifting, anything like that. It was just using your mind and kind of like just patching calls through and stuff. So of course I could do it. And it was to cover maternity leave, but it meant that I didn't go traveling, or I wouldn't be able to go traveling for 6 months, but I'd be able to save up more money. So I did it, and then they said, it was just one Friday, they said, "Why don't you start to make some outbound calls and some sales calls?" And I was like, well, I haven't really sold before, but I'd been working since I was 13 at a picture framing shop in Denton.
Okay.
So that guy taught me to sell, essentially. So he taught me the customer comes in, you ask them open questions. Well, your photograph's beautiful, or your picture's beautiful. What do you want to do with it? Where's it going to hang? What's your budget? What kind of colors do you like? What kind of colors are in your living room? That kind of thing. Yeah. And then you sell back to it. So I kind of had a sales apprenticeship from being 13, 14 by doing that. So I was just calling these companies. And then what I realized is, obviously at 18, you may sound older on the phone. Yep. So I sounded older on the phone. So all of a sudden they thought an adult was calling them, and in actual fact, a kid at 18 was calling them. So I would get the same amount of respect as the guy sat next to me who was 35. So that started, and then long story short, I kind of got headhunted to work for another couple of companies, and then headhunted to work for a really big recruitment company in the center of Manchester. And then it was like similar to the running. Was like, okay, you're with the big boys now. These guys don't mess about, and you can learn a lot, and it's highly competitive. But if it's highly competitive, you know what that's all about. Let's have fun and make sure you win the game. And with recruitment, I was sat in an open plan office with 40, 50 people, and there's a board at the front of the office, and it's literally a league table of where you are that month. And so if your name is middle or bottom of the table, you just keep your mouth shut and keep working, and then if you get to the top, you can kind of open your mouth. So I thought it was brilliant. That might not suit everybody, but I couldn't think of a better way to learn the game. And also I couldn't imagine a world where you could, like sport, it was a complete meritocracy. So the harder you worked and the smarter you worked, the more you got paid. And then I became a product of my environment, living in Manchester and being what my dad called me, which was right at the time, like a yuppie. I still really don't know the meaning of the word, but what it meant to me is young hotshot, thinks he knows it all, who's driving fast cars, wearing nice watches and shoes, and just being the man about town and thinking he's cool, which I absolutely wasn't. But those are the things that I saw successful people to have around me, and in the city centre of Manchester, and therefore that's what I aspired to have, and then got. And the stuff, I wasn't a great recruiter. I was an okay recruiter, but in terms of skill set, but what nobody could match me on was my work ethic. Right. So I would, if I knew, there was far more skilled recruiters than me, but I knew that if I worked 60, 70 hours a week, and I was working weekends when nobody else was, and I wasn't going out during the week and drinking, I knew that I could have an advantage over those people. So I would do well that way. And so still to this day, as I'm kind of like full circle, I'm going back into my career. That's kind of where I have the edge over my competitors, because you might be better than me, but you won't outwork me. And it may sound arrogant, but in my world, that's not to do with skill or anything you've been given. It's just your attitude and focus to work. The same with running. Like I don't see myself as a talented runner. Giorgio is a talented runner who works bloody hard, and
Yep.
I work hard. That's all I do. So I'm not talented. I just work hard, and that's again the draw for running or cycling with me. So yeah, and in terms of what we said before about kind of going to different offices and working with different people, I thought it was crazy that nobody else was doing it. Like if somebody's doing 4 times as well as you in Amsterdam, what is it that they're doing differently? So can I come and work with you for a couple of weeks? And first of all, they feel great about it because they get to kind of pass on their skill. There's nobody in their office asking them the same question because everyone's too competitive. It's a bit like athletics. People keep what they do secret because they think they've got the magic recipe. In actual fact, they're not. There isn't any secrets. There might be a little tweak or more of this and less of this, and it's usually something to do with the 80-20 rule. But yeah, that just made sense to me. And when you meet enough of those high achievers, and then you get to kind of add those little skills to your game and little tweaks, obviously you improve. And for me, that's kind of, I guess, the meaning of life, like self-development and constant growth. Yeah.
Okay. So do you know when you was it a tough decision for you to make then? Would you when you kind of moved from kind of the kind of more corporate world to the kind of athletic world, was it quite a tough decision to make, or was it one that you thought it was quite an easy decision to make because of like that mentality that you've kind of explained already on the show?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'd basically learned a trade, and then I got to a point where I'd started my own company, and then the market had crashed. Since 2007, 2008, and so it was like I'm working twice as hard for a quarter of the money. So now's a good time to do that traveling. I have money in the bank, and now's a good time to do that traveling. I didn't know it would be a soul searching mission. And so when I went cycle touring and you're on the bike every day for 8, 10, 12 hours a day, you're sleeping in the worst hotels in the world, but they seem like the best because you just want to get your head down. You're cycling that much on your own, you start to ask, it's like meditation. You start to ask yourself the same questions, and then you start eventually to get the same answers. And for that has happened 3 or 4 times in my life, hiking in the Himalayas, cycling in Asia. And that is usually kind of, what am I doing with my life? Am I on the right path? What should I do to change and get on the right path? And then later on, when I was in the Himalayas, it was more like, are you on the right path? Yeah, I'm running. But are you giving it, I was still working and trying to run, get to a point of time. Are you giving it the attention that it deserves? No. So you need to quit your job. So how do you quit your job strategically, have enough money to fund yourself, and then go full time? So those decisions for me were the easiest decisions in the world, because I was making the decision based, maybe it sounds cheesy, but it was a heart-based decision rather than a mental decision. But when I left recruitment, the year before, I'd earned the most I'd ever earned in a year. So I'd stopped spending it on things that make you look rich, like I was in Manchester, and I was spending that stuff on things that kind of helps you grow wealth and things like that. So I started to get more smart with my money. So when I left recruitment, when my friends and my local, like, close peers knew what I was doing and how well it was going, they thought I was crazy. So they thought I was nuts to leave it. And then when I said I'm going to pursue a professional athlete career, I was 27. So they thought, and even my girlfriend at the time was like, "You're too big." I was like 83 kilos or something like that, and playing a lot of rugby and stuff like that when I lived in Spain. You're too old and you're too slow. And I remember it was kind of, I had this kind of penny drop moment at the back end of 2009 when I was cycling from Bangkok to Singapore, and my mate had said in Singapore, if you can get here before New Year's Eve, we've got a New Year's Eve party. And I thought, what a great way to end the year after just cycling all year. So I got there in 10 days instead of what should have been 20 days. So it was literally like 12, 14 hours a day on the bike. And I ended up falling asleep before New Year's Eve. and just missing the whole party, the whole kind of fireworks and stuff, which would have been great. But I decided the day before that once I got back to my base in Thailand, that I would start running. So on the 2nd or 3rd of January 2010, I ran for the first time, and I said, I'm just going out for an hour.
Yep.
And I came back about 5 minutes later, like, I think I pulled a muscle and I couldn't run 400 meters. So all that cycling fitness hadn't translated.
Right. Okay.
But my girlfriend at the time, like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a professional runner. She was like, you're crazy. Like, and then all these, I was like, no, this, and obviously your progression curve is really steep then. Yep. So you get a lot of motivation from that. And it was like, okay, how do I make this into a full-time gig? Because that's what you need to do, full-time devotion and obsession in order to be best in the world. And also where can I fit best in? I'm not going to be a great 10,000 or 5,000 meter runner at 27. It's too long in order for me to get there. I'm going to be too old. So ultra running made sense for me, and then I became obsessed with the 100-kilometer distance.
Right. Okay.
So yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. Okay. So so my next question is then from winning the 2017 British 100k title, from holding the course record in Granada in Spain, which has some of the highest roads in Europe, and then winning the 2017 Doi Inthanon 50k in Thailand, which is a continuous uphill climb, which you hold the course record for. However, the course now is no longer run because the officials deemed it too dangerous at the time. To being the first Brit, as we've mentioned, to win the Passatore. How do you personally cope with the kind of peaks and troughs of the professional journey? Because, again, when we've been doing our reading, there was times where, like in, say, February 22, where I think you fell after like 5 miles for the Black Canyons one, or whether you've not been selected for, say, like the British team, for instance. How do you kind of mentally kind of cope with the kind of peaks and troughs of the journey? As well?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, it's to be honest with you, even as an adult, really difficult at first, because I mean, you're as a child when you kind of lose, you don't know how to handle it. You know, after all those years of winning, you just, it's like this is not how the world works. Like I'm first. And so you can't process it, but as an adult, you kind of, the worst thing that can happen is injury, especially when you're training towards something big. So there's been a couple of times when I've been training towards World Championships, wanting to win, trying to go for the win, and then within the 3-4 weeks before, I've got injured, and that's me overstretching because basically because of lack of confidence. So if you have complete confidence in yourself, which the best athletes do, then you don't have to do those risky sessions in order to make sure you're absolutely on the, 100% on race day.
Right.
What you should be able to, and I know this, but knowing it and kind of putting it into practice are two different things, even if you know you're doing this wrong. Yeah. So for me, if I'm on the start line 80% fit, I've got a chance to win.
Right. Okay.
That's equal to breaking the world record. For me to go and break the world record at the World Championships means that I need to be absolutely 100%, and there's no stone left unturned. Yeah. So going for that kind of stuff, I got to a point where I realized, you know what, I'm trying to achieve something mega here, so that there's a lot of risk involved. Okay. So if that means injury, I'm still going to go for it. And if it all comes together, it will mean a win, and it might mean the world record. And the world record for me, it's like a course record. There's only many people can win the race, and when you go to a race and win the race, you're only the best on the day. Whereas if you set the course record, or if you get the world record, you're the best of all time. Up to that point. So that's something special for me, and that's why I love Don so much, because he did a lot of stuff that hadn't been done yet.
Okay. So do you rely on the psychologists as well? Do you have like psychologists that kind of say, nutritionists, or do you kind of have support off the family? Because I know when we've had, say, so we had Max Barbera, so he was an NHL hockey player, and he was saying that because he was part of the team sport, he had like the nutritionist, the kind of psychologist, like kind of the team around them to kind of support them on the times that are really kind of tough and the times where they're feeling quite kind of down. Do you have that as well, or do you just, is it kind of like the family network and like kind of the friends that you kind of rely on at that particular moment in time?
No, I don't have it. Running's a very individual sport.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of I advise a few people
Okay.
on and basically say, there's no kind of education that backs this up. I'm just
Yeah.
helping you based on my experience, and a big part of ultra running is nutrition, like you've just
Right.
said, and also
Yeah.
psychology. For me on the psychology side, my problem is holding myself back,
Right.
not putting in the work.
Right.
My problem is overworking rather than
Yeah.
underworking. And when it gets to race day, it, the only way I can describe it is I really look up to the people who've been in the top of their game for 20 years plus and have been like really, really good, because that we both know that takes a lot more than skill, talent,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's a lot of durability, and it means that you've got to want it, and so you're probably doing it for the love of it rather than for the money,
Yeah.
and the external rewards. So for me, like, I think it's 30 years this World Championship, Ronnie O'Sullivan has been
Yeah.
top of his game
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
snooker, and he's become a friend over the years.
Okay.
But there's a time when he wanted to retire. He'd done everything, and he wanted to retire. Obviously, snooker is mainly Ronnie O'Sullivan. If you know of snooker, you probably know it because of Ronnie O'Sullivan.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I won't watch snooker unless Ronnie's playing. And he sat down with Stephen Peters, who's a famous psychologist who also worked with Team Sky, who's now
Yeah.
Ineos,
Yeah.
the cycling team. And basically, snooker didn't want to lose him. The fans didn't want to lose him, and Ronnie really didn't want to come out of snooker either, deep
Yeah.
down. But Steve Peters just said, when he said, "Why do you want to retire?" And he said, "I don't enjoy it anymore." And he said, "Well, when do you enjoy it?" He said, "The only time I enjoy it is when I'm playing exhibition matches." And he said, "Well, why?" And he said, "Because I feel like there's no pressure. I'm just entertaining the crowd." And Steve Peters said, do you try to miss? And he was like, what? And he said, do you try to miss shots? And he said, no, I don't try and miss. You just kind of take more risk.
Yeah.
And they just said, why don't you play every match like it's an exhibition match? Yeah. And that gave him so much freedom and improved snooker, improved the way he viewed the game. And so for me, I feel the same. If I've done the training, I've already done the hard work. There's no way on race day that you can't avoid your competitive nature. There's no way if I can get to race line in some kind of condition that I'm not going to get competitive on race day. And it's the same for running in a match. If he's kind of 3-2 down in the best of five, in the first to five, it's going to come out of him. He could try to pretend that he doesn't care, which often he does, but it'll come out of him. So that's my side on psychology. So I find it fascinating. And I started recently speaking to a psychologist, and what she usually deals with is people who crumble on when it comes to the pressure shot, it comes to that's the kind of key area that a lot of psychologists deal with. They crumble on race day. There's a lot of great trainers, and then when it comes to match day, and I think that's probably the same for your son, right? And your sons who are, it's you'll see some kids, especially young, they're brilliant in training, but when it comes to match day, but then that has to happen. Otherwise, what are you going to do when you're playing in front of 30,000, 50,000, 60,000? You've got to kind of either thrive on that or pretend like your son, it doesn't exist, right? So there's that side. And then on nutrition, just quickly, like 2020 when COVID happened and everybody was a lot more accessible. I started to speak to the different areas where I thought I could improve my game. So nutrition, exercise, physiology, strength and conditioning, psychology, all these different areas. And nutrition, I graded myself out of 10 for each, and I thought if we just step up 1-2% exponentially, it's going to be a big improvement. And so a nutritionist looked at my stuff and said, "You're there or thereabouts, pretty spot on for a vegan. But if you could just do this, then that would take you from a 7 to a 9 out of 10 kind of thing."
Right.
Okay. I do reach out to people, and I'm really interested when people talk about what they do.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So like Ronnie, then, is there ever been any times where you felt like kind of giving up on the journey? Because I know it affects everybody in different ways, and I mean, again, speaking to all the professional athletes, I mean, like we've had a number on the show now, and when you speak to the athletes who have been involved in, say, like the team sports, so like the basketballers, the footballers, the ice hockey players, for instance, when you start looking at the number of teams, do you know that they've played for, and the number of teams that have kind of let them go? For instance, we had Manny Onarise on a while ago. So he used to play for West Ham. And he was there at the time when Sam Allardyce was there. He was in the youth team at 17. Sam Allardyce saw something special in him. So he bumped him up into the senior team. So at the end of the season, Mane was going into the pre-season thinking that first team here at West Ham, and he said it on the show, he said he thought he'd made it. He thought he was like kind of there. And then I think the season didn't start as the way West Ham had planned, and they got rid of Sam Allardyce and they got Slaven Bilic in, and they only saw Mane as a 17-year-old, so they put him back down into the youth team, and that hurt him quite a lot for a while, he said. And then he played for a number of like other teams, and it could be quite easy for certain individuals to, let that really kind of knock them and hurt them. Obviously, with the professional athletes, that's somewhat different. That intrinsic motivation and desire and determination and resilience to kind of carry on is kind of always there, isn't it? So, has there been any times where you felt like it's just?
You know what? I think you've said it there, and it's a perfect example. It's like, are you motivated? There's two different types of motivation: intrinsic and extrinsic. Yeah. So if you're in it for the money, the glory, the fame, we've seen what it's just done with Conor McGregor in UFC. Yeah. So it was good for maybe 6-8 fights. All of a sudden, we see his Instagram. These days, you can see what people are up to. I think is it Sugar Ray Leonard who said difficult to get up and go to the gym at 6 o'clock in the morning when you see sleeping in silk sheets. If that's your motivation, and I've seen it also on the business side, if people are money motivated, which everybody is to a certain point, once they reach that, everything goes. If your motivation, and you can take this from the sport world to the business world. So once you finish your sport career, you can very easily do well in business. And that's why you get people like Shaq O'Neal, Michael Jordan. They're kind of mopping up in business because they're taking those same ethics over. If you're motivated intrinsically by the love of winning the game, then you're bulletproof. You're completely bulletproof, because no matter what happens, it's just a speed bump. It's just another hurdle to come across. That's it, in ultra running, we get it all the time. And what I was saying to you before is, however good your preparation is, there's something going to go wrong in the race. Very few races go all right for 100K and for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours. So something's going to go wrong. So how do you deal with that? And it's the same. Unfortunately, athletics gets subjective. I love it because first person to win crosses the line. It's as simple as that. There's an outright winner. Once you get into Great British athletics, it becomes very subjective. So you have to have the right coach. Your face has to fit a little bit. And I remember being in those days at Lancashire Cricket Club, where I spoke like a kid from Denton. I didn't speak like a kid from a posh part of Manchester. So I kind of felt like I'm going to show these guys up on Saturday if we go and play a fancy club somewhere else in the country. You kind of, it's not like that in thingy, but your coach really, it's really important who your coach is and stuff. So there's times when I've been left out of the team and I'm just like really pissed off. But how am I going to? You got to use that again as fire. Use that fire as fuel. So it's like, okay, you're angry. channel it and make sure that, okay, so that those guys that you've picked, watch what I do to them on race day, because you can usually still turn up and compete as an open runner against Great Britain. And let's see how I do, and let's see at the end of the season their times versus my times. So my friend is brilliant. I have 6 friends in my life, and it's one too many. My dad always said you have to count your friends on one hand, so I'm trying to get rid of one, but they're all great people. But my friend, he works for one of the big 4 accounting firms, and he just sent me what is basically kind of our mantra amongst the lads, and they're all doing different things in different places, but all kind of similar mindset. And he said, I'm going to win the fight against all those people that don't even know they're in a fight.
Mm-hmm.
And what he means by that is he's ultra competitive with everybody around him, even if they don't know that they're kind of in the fight. They're in a fight. That's how I feel in athletics. It's kind of like an individual sport. Nobody cares about the team sport, but the managers do, because they're assessed on their team sport. You can look back 1 year and ask who came second in the team female award for 100K championships in Germany. Nobody knows and nobody cares. It's who won the race. Maybe second and third are also important, but it's who won the race. So we go for the team award because it suits the selectors, and that is, it's nonsense really. So yeah, I guess that's how I feel about what you just said.
Okay. So when you kind of look back on your career and all the journeys it's kind of taking you on, both kind of physically and like kind of mentally, and I think I probably already know the answer to this question from the kind of time that we've kind of spent together. We say on the show, is climbing the mountain worth the view? And it's quite an appropriate analogy today because of obviously who we've got on the show. So would you say climbing the mountain has been worth the view for you?
I'd go further than that and say that climbing the mountain is worth more than the view.
Right. Okay.
So the journey is a reward, and all the stuff, like your sons will feel so much pressure right now. I'm sure at 12 years old, there's so much for them to do and achieve and stuff like that. But all the stuff they're learning on the way, all the time they get to spend with you and their parents, that's really the reward. All the lessons they're learning and how to deal with failure, and it's not all going to go in a straight line, and there's very few people that don't have any kind of speed bumps along the way. So for me, it's so much more important. And the tougher that journey is, the better and the better you're going to be when you get there, and the more prepared and the longer you're going to be there.
Right.
So so the answer is never give up. Like no matter what, never give up, because you only lose when you quit, right? So you only kind of fail when you quit. So we can pull up on, with so much information that we have access to now. You can pull up, give me 100 top quotes on motivation, and most of them will be old men who are telling you never give up, kind of preparation, and just, you know, whether it's explorers, whether it's kind of athletes, whether it's business people, you can fail 999 times. It only takes one time to succeed, and you're a success. So it's for me, it's really quite simple. Luckily I'm getting to see it on the other side now. I'm getting to see it on the recruitment side. So it's again, I say it's come full circle. So when you're making 100 calls a day, 99 people are telling you to get lost. It's pretty funny. But if you can make that into a game, you realize that if 99 people are telling me to no, basically, that's a successful day, because you've reached that to you've been able to be that relentless that you've got one yes in 100, because 99 people along the way have told you no. It's incredible. If you can judge that as success, you're laughing.
So that's so we had Danny Evans on. So he's a professional basketballer, And when he was reaching out to American colleges to get scholarships, he said I think he sent out over 200 applications to different kind of colleges.
Yeah.
And he said he got I think he got a reply rate back of about 10 replied to him. And he said 3 of those didn't take foreign students, and then there was some others that didn't do kind of scholarships, and then some of them were part scholarships, but he said his family couldn't afford it. So he said it got whittled down to about 2. So it's a similar thing there. I mean, he was just with that mindset and that relentlessness of, you know what, I'm just going to send another, and I'll send another, and I'll send another, to a point where he actually got what he wanted. I mean, he ended up getting a full scholarship for it. And like he said, it's that kind of persistence and kind of willingness just to kind of keep on going and not quitting, like you said.
It's fantastic. Does he feel as if he got that from sport?
Yeah, and again, I think from everybody that we've kind of spoke to, you can kind of see that if they've kind of finished their career now, there's been so many different kind of transferable skills that they've been able to, kind of use in more the kind of corporate world that they're kind of going into, or whether they've set up one of their own kind of companies. I think that kind of determination and kind of resilience and that mindset, again, like you mentioned about Michael Jordan, Shaquille O'Neal, who have kind of set up kind of companies that are mega, mega successful. But again, they're just using that kind of mindset and the kind of the thought process that they had when they was in the professional game of not giving up and going that extra mile and doing that little bit extra. Because again, we had a professional footballer on, Luke Joyce. So he made over 600 football league appearances and he said to us on the show that he wasn't the most naturally gifted, he wasn't the most kind of physical, he wasn't the most talented or skillful. He said, however, the boys that he kind of did know who were kind of probably quicker, stronger, faster than him, he said they just didn't have the right kind of attitude or the right mentality, because again, a little bit like what you touched on before, it gets to a certain kind of level. Everybody's pretty much the same kind of level, and it's what little bit extras can you do to just get a little bit kind of further ahead. And I think from speaking to some of the athletes, it's not what everybody kind of really 100% kind of wants to do. And it's that kind of extra 1%, that little extra difference that makes the kind of athletes like the guys that we've kind of had on the show, like kind of yourself. It's that little bit extra that people are willing to kind of do and to kind of go through that will allow them to kind of succeed. So
it's funny, right? You'll see a couple of there's 2 different types of people, right? There's people that are finishing training at 2:00 or 4:00, whenever it is during the day, and then what they're doing for the rest of the day. And then you've got people like Ronaldo, like Ryan Giggs in the later stages of his career, Paul Scholes. They're staying. They've already earned the stripes, but they're staying because they know they want to keep competing at a higher level. There's a great story about Shaq. It's not only kind of going the extra mile, it's also thinking, what else can I do? So Shaq was going with his financial advisors and accountants and lawyers to these meetings, and he was the one with the money, but wanting to invest in companies. And he found that the business people were speaking to his accountants and lawyers, not speaking to him. So he wanted to do a business degree or whatever, some kind of business degree. And he went to Phoenix University and said, I want to do a business degree. Oh, I don't want to do it online. I want to do it face to face. Oh, sorry, we don't do it because we need 15 people for a class. And how many have you got? What was it? It's just you. So he went and paid for 14 of his friends to come and join him.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
The court. So it's like, I will find a way. And that's from his sport. I will find a way to succeed. You can put all the walls in front of me. I will go around. Simple as that. So I love that stuff. Yeah, and it's brilliant. Like the stuff about the applications with the basketball player. Yeah, it's just brilliant, because you see every day. You'll see on Facebook somebody moaning, I just sent 30 applications in the last 2 months and I've not got a job. what did you expect? Your run rate at the moment is one application every 48 hours, and you want someone to give you a job?
Yeah.
You in that tweet that you put out, firstly, why are you tweeting that? But secondly, you've already told me that you're unhireable because you got that's your work ethic.
Yeah.
So whereas your man is sending 200 applications to try and get a scholarship, and he knows he only needs one.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
who you gonna take? The sports person or somebody who's kind of thinking in the wrong way? So it's for me, it's fascinating. Yeah.
So as the show comes to an end, unfortunately, we have a tradition, and we always ask our guests if they have any favourite quotes or philosophies that they use on a daily basis. For instance, we had Jay Lelliott, professional swimmer, on not so long ago, and he said, "Don't put a limit on anything. If you believe it, you can achieve it." And he also said, "Be a little bit better today than yesterday." So just wondering if you had any kind of famous kind of quotes or philosophies that you'd be able to share with that you might have used along the way on your journey.
There's a couple. I love Hunter Thompson, the author and journalist, and he said, "Drive fast on empty streets, thinking of nothing but falling in love and not getting arrested." And for me, that might seem okay. That's a bit out of the box, but that's for me, like, just enjoy it.
Yeah.
For crying out loud! Like first of all, like I've lived in 8 countries and traveled quite a lot, and so I've got to see that what we have in the UK is a bloody good deal. Yeah, you get a golden ticket if you're born in the UK. And most countries that we kind of know of and kind of from our area, Europe, America, etc., we've got a golden ticket. If you've traveled in Southeast Asia, South America, you will have seen that the world is not a fair place, which we know, but we don't really know, kind of thing. Yeah. So you've got that golden ticket: free healthcare, free education.
Yep.
Some kind of a democracy or an illusion of a democracy. And so just use that ticket, just run with it and do what you can. Even that we're from England and speak English puts us ahead of like 90% of the world.
Yeah.
If you kind of getting hung up about, oh well, I didn't get selected, or I didn't, it's like there's a war going on at the moment in Ukraine. We're not dodging bullets. Like we're running for 6.5 hours as fast as we can. So when you get asked, like, is it painful? Does it hurt? Is it not, like, is it worth it? It's like, give me a break, will you? So there's that. There's this perspective of that kind of, make sure you enjoy it and make sure also you bring something else to the table. But also, athletics is dying because it's not as interesting as football to watch. So there's not as many eyes, and with eyes and views come money. UFC, fastest growing sport, I think of all time. Yeah, there's a reason that that's exciting, but how many people are actually earning really good money in that sport? Like very, very few. Yeah. So you have to kind of do what you love and do it with passion and do it the best as you can. But my quote before a race, which is kind of going back to psychology you mentioned before, is you get on the start line. It doesn't matter whether it's world championships or whether it's your local 5K, 10K.
It's
super tense. Everyone is, have I done enough? Am I going to run fast enough? What's going to go wrong? Is my Achilles all right? All these thoughts. It's like my one thing to kind of get out of that and just be like, okay, you're in the zone, is a Noel Gallagher quote, which is, how much do you want it? Just in that moment, how much do you want it? And just look around you and kind of like, how much? And if we're going to play, let's win. And that, from my sports teachers and my dad and my coaches, that was always our mentality when we went anywhere. We were always a small club at East Cheshire areas or small football club, wherever. But the mentality on the coach on the way was like, are we really going to let these lads beat us?
Yeah.
I think if you look at it like that, like almost like rugby players, like, we're going to kill them, but afterwards we're going to shake their hands. That's what sport is, kind of war without bullets. So if we're going to go there, we're going to give it absolutely everything. We're going to give them hell. But afterwards we're going to realize that we're only playing sport. we're not I'm not running into a burning building saving anybody. We're only doing sport.
Yeah.
Let's just have a reality check. Yeah. So yeah, those two things. But yeah, and another great question, Simon.
Oh, brilliant. So Lee, thank you so much for being a guest on Elite Children, a family portrait. I'm sure the listeners can definitely see they're not alone in raising elite level children. There's some unbelievable stories that we've kind of come to learn from yourself. Too many to kind of mention on the show. However, I did want to finish off with another story that I did read about you, which I thought kind of summarised your kind of personality as an individual, as I've kind of come to understand over the last few days from reading. And it was the one where you'd returned to Thailand after your 14-day quarantine in Spain, and you attempted to beat the 50k uphill record on the treadmill with a 5% incline. And this was something where you knew there was going to be no world record because there was no one to kind of monitor you. It was for no fans. You just decided when you was in your 14-day quarantine in Thailand that you wanted to set this record, and obviously you did. You did get the record. It was 3 hours, 37 minutes, 36 seconds. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So again, I just thought it really kind of summarised your kind of characteristics of that inner kind of motivation and desire and motivation to just succeed and not to do it for that podium kind of finish that we kind of spoke about at the start. So from very, very briefly getting to know you over the last few days, and from reading and hearing all the amazing stories about you, words like relentlessness, obsession, motivation, determination, and I think that sheer defiance of human limitations all spring to mind. You're genuinely one of the nicest guys that we've kind of had on this show. I've thoroughly enjoyed getting to know you, and with a mindset and personality like yours, I'm sure any future ventures, projects and all your races that you do will be a huge success. So thank you very much, Lee Grantham.
Really appreciate that. It's really nice of you. Thank you.
No problem at all. Thank you.